and we'll see an incredibly lengthy PowerPoint about HTML. And we'll see a much smaller one about JavaScript. So it's the bottom of the contents folder, JavaScript notes, JavaScript PowerPoints. We're actually going to skip the HTML one and go straight to scripting JavaScript. So download the PowerPoint rather than just click it in the preview so that you can actually open it to copy and paste. And we're going to be using TextPad. And if you're using your Mac, it's going to be harder for us to follow along. You could either just sit and watch, or you could turn on the PC and do TextPad, because I don't know what program to tell you. Don't know how to get it to hang with Macs. Macs are great. They do great web development. I just can't coach you on it right now. Okay. So what we need to know is what an HTML document looks like, and then where we're going to be placing a JavaScript. So we need TextPad. Go to the search box, type in TextPad. I'm just going to call this Lecture Z. It's a lecture to end all lectures. Lecture Z, but save it as HTML. Please, guys, save it as HTML. I'll say it one more time. Save it as HTML. Why? Because when I wander around and help y'all and it's launching as a text document inside a notepad, it's because you didn't save it as HTML. So lecturez.h, and I'm only saying that because I had like 20% of the class last time do it because I didn't save it enough. So open up TextPad, create an empty document. Now our document looks kind of like this. It starts off with HTML. Let me increase the font size. If it lets me. Yay. That's a tag. Body, that's another tag. P for paragraph, that's another tag. It's okay if you don't type this because I'm probably just going to erase it in a minute. And then we're going to make an image, except I'm not going to actually make it work. I'm not going to point it to a real image. So it's going to be a broken link. And then I'm going to make a button. By and large, most tags have to be closed, meaning that for every open tag, there needs to be a closed one, which is the same thing with a slash in front of it. And I forgot to put slashes in front of both of these. Indenting really helps you, but it doesn't matter. You could take out all the indentation and it would work just as well. And I forgot to indent those. Okay, so there we go. These are tags. This is what's known as an attribute. An attribute is tucked inside a tag, and the syntax is attribute name equals and then the attribute value. And what if we do this? Style equals color colon red, end quote. Right, so now I'm going to view it. Save it. I always just hit Control S and I do it reflexively without telling you I'm saving it. If you ever see an asterisk up there, it just means that you haven't saved it yet. Control S. Then click the planet, and there it is. This is some text. There's our image that I didn't point to a correct image, and there's the click me button. It doesn't do a darn thing, but that's how you define a button. Notice that the image doesn't have a closing tag. If you feel like it, to make it strictly 100% compliant with standards, you could stick that there. Doesn't matter. The rest of them we would not do because none of these others are self-closing tags, right? We had to nest some stuff inside the paragraph tag. Something to notice is that even though these are separated by lines, when we run it, they're not separated by a carriage return there. HTML does not care. It just treats every line feed and stuff and it pushes it all together unless you do something specific to make it work. which is you could embed some carriage returns, which are the breaking tag, or you can do something else. All right, this is something that was introduced after the introduction of HTML1. This is a CSS, cascading style sheet style command, and you can chain them together with semicolons. I could put another one there, background color, or put some, decoration on it, underlining, change its size, whatever.
Can you make your code
A little bit bigger? Alrighty. Especially now that we're going to be copying and pasting, I'd like for you to actually be able to see what I'm copying and pasting. So there we go. If I want to comment all of this out, I decide I'm starting fresh. Here's what a HTML comment looks like. Angle, exclamation mark, dash, dash. And then down here at the bottom, dash, dash, angle with no exclamation mark. Now that just comments out the whole thing, kind of like quote, quote, quote does in Python. I'm just going to push all that out of the way because I want to get some good stuff in here. Along with the body tag, you can have a header tag which describes the document. We're going to see that when we open up the JavaScript PowerPoint. There's nothing stopping you from reading this entire PowerPoint on your own. Alright, this is pretty much showing you where we would put stuff in it to embed our scripts. We declare a head tag. We can put a title of the web page. Thing that moves, shows up in a little tab. Nowadays, titles aren't so important. You have 20 tabs open, you can't even read it. And then between the open script and the close script tag is where we're going to embed our JavaScript. Then we have a close head tag, and then we have a body and a close body, and that's where what we actually see goes. So go to the next one, and this is going to be the first one we actually play with. Copy this sample script HTML from page 22. Go into TextPad and paste it. Save it, Control S. When we run it, it's going to be pretty boring because it doesn't have a body, it doesn't have anything. It has a title and that's it. If we want to stick a body in it, we could do so. We could stick something between these two things. How about a paragraph tag? Like that. At least proving it works, right? And whenever we click the planet, it's just loading up whatever the registered HTML handler is. If it's launching IE for you, it's because somebody has configured Internet Explorer as the default HTML handler. All right, next page. We're going to get our script. Here's the script. And here's the code that calls it. Why don't we stick the code in there first? This is going to go in the body. It's going to be tabbed over to be inside of the body. So grab everything from H1 down all the way to /button. And I will take pauses to help, but I want to get a little bit further before I do that. So this is going to go inside the body, so it needs to go either above our hi there or below it or just replacing that hi there tag. I'm just going to replace it. I want that stuff to be between the open and closed body tags. And to make it pretty, I'm going to tab it over. Again, tabs are just for our sake. Unlike Python where they're of critical importance, we could delete all the carriage returns, right? Like that, and it would work just as well. So at this point it should run, it should display a button. I Controlled S to save it. Right? It doesn't do anything. That's okay. It will. Why isn't it doing anything? Do you remember when we had, can we get rid of that and that and that? Can we stop spinning the wheel? Remember when we were doing a TK enter, we had a command equals and we mentioned a function? We directed it to a function to call each time it was clicked. Well, here we specify that with onClick, and it calls a function, but that function is not defined, right? I'm going to need to go ahead and put it up here in the script. We can do that. We can take this top stuff, our script, and paste it between the script tags. And then in a minute I'm going to get up and wave my arms, point at the board, and I want to make sure that everybody who's trying to get this to work has this working. Oh, by the way, I did tab that over, but I've kind of decided that scripts don't need to be tabbed over, right? We don't tab our programs in 5-6 lines just from the very beginning. But it doesn't matter. Like I said, you could put 8,000 tabs in front of it and it would work. So what is this going to do? If we look, we have a paragraph with an ID of demo. You don't have to give anything an ID, but it gives it a name so that this script can find it. And so it calls a function called document.getElementById. And since that function is attached to a piece of data or a class, it's actually called a method. That's a method. GetElementById, what it does is it finds that specific element. So we can do something to it. Right? If we change this name, this would no longer work. And then innerHTML will take whatever's between the paragraph tags and change it. It's going to just change it to hello JavaScript. Bless you. So I'm going to go ahead and run it, going to Control S and run it. Hopefully the button is going to be able to call that JavaScript and change it. So when it says click me, hello JavaScript, it did change it. One more change, and then I'll wander around. Instead of on click, change that to on mouse over. That's a different event. That one's triggered just when your mouse moves over the button. I don't remember if I saved it. Control S, click the earth, move my mouse over it, click me, and boom, it changed it instantly. So that's called an event. An event is when your page is interacting with the user. And anytime the mouse moves over what's registered as an event, including a click event or now a mouse over event, the user interface, the browser, calls change demo. All right, I'd like to see y'all, see who got this working. Good. All right. So, what else could we do? We can change the properties of it. Remember that style property. Instead of changing the inner HTML of it, let's comment this out. JavaScript steals a lot of its syntax from the C language, from the Java language, and so on. By the way, there's no connection between Java and JavaScript except for the fact that the syntax kind of looks similar because they're both descended from C. The people who invented JavaScript just thought it was a cool name. Hey, Java's getting a lot of buzz, so we're going to call this JavaScript. Utterly no connection between the two. Okay, so instead of e.innerHTML, let's do e.style equals quote, and let's set some style. Color, colon, I don't know, purple, semicolon. Let's try background. I don't know if background color will work. I should ogle it before we do that. Background color CSS. Okay, it's background dash color. All right. So, after the semicolon, background dash color, colon, yellow. Semicolon, close quote. That's enough. I should be ending each one of these lines with a semicolon, just like you do in Java or C. I haven't been. Browsers are awfully generous. They try to handle mistakes, unlike Python, which chokes as soon as it, sees a single mistake, because web pages are too important, So, Those semicolons are actually appropriate, and I should have even stuck a semicolon down here because this is just another line of JavaScript, right? Okay, so now instead of inserting new HTML inside of the paragraph tag, it's just going to change the color of everything inside that paragraph tag. Control S to save, Control Planet, and it changed it. The syntax for JavaScript. Let's not. Let's continue with the PowerPoint. Alrighty, change image. We're going to make an image that when you click on it, or maybe when you mouse over it, it swaps to another image. To do that, we need two images to play with. I'm just going to go to Google, do a search, download it, name it img1.jpg, and then find another picture, download it to img2.jpg. Now we call this ID droid because I guess I had the idea that I was going to go and find pictures of droids. So I'm going to go to Chrome, Control T for new tab or whatever. I'm going to type in droid. We just need two pictures. You can look up kittens, you know, whatever you want. So I'm going to click on images. I need a picture. Why not this guy? He's looking pretty cool. Right click, and if you're using IE, Internet Explorer or something like that, I'm sure you know how to save images. I don't. I can't work your way through it. Okay, and so I'm going to save it, but I need to save it in my source code directory. Wherever your program is, if you don't put this image in the same directory, it's not going to work. And I'm going to change the file name to what is going to be in my code, but if that didn't work, I would change my code to match the file name. img1.jpg is my file name. Now I need to go and find another picture. I'm just going to scroll down. Oh, he's cute. So right click on him, save image as, and call him img2.jpg. Alright, I thought I was a Star Wars nerd, but I do not recognize that thing at all. Maybe that's from the cartoon. Alright, let's...
That's from the Clone Wars, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, alright. So, we've got new stuff to copy paste. We have a new function. We're going to add it, like maybe above or below the one we've got. So I'm just going to highlight all that, click copy, go to the text. I'm going to paste it underneath change demo. Notice that we define our functions like this with a function keyword instead of DEF. A function can return a value. We could stick a return here, but we're not calling anything in such a fashion that it would need to return something. When you're going to declare a variable, the language specifies that you create it with the var keyword. Notice we didn't do that here. Again, just because the language, you know, the browsers handle slightly garbage code. So to be strictly correct, I'm going to add var in front of the E because that's the way it ought to be. It runs fine without it. It'll create the variable anyways. It's not a strict language, unlike Java, C++, stuff like that. All right, so what is this doing? It's going to get that element, which is going to be an image tag. I haven't copied and pasted it. And it's going to change the source of it to a different image, the source attribute. So I need to go and get that next bit of code. I'm going to paste it underneath our button above the close body tag. Just copy and paste that. Copy JavaScript can change images. Copy that. Paste that. Tab it over so it doesn't look quite as horrible. Alright, so here's an image tag. Here's the source for the image. That's an attribute. The syntax of an attribute is equal sign. Attribute, equal sign, and then value. It's got another attribute, which is the ID, which is how the function finds it. Here's the event that we're going to be trying to capture. on click. Again, we could change it to mouse over, and the picture would mouse over as soon as, it would trigger this function as soon as we, moused over it. But on click's good enough. And we're setting a width for the picture. I don't know if 600 PS is going to look good for my droid there or not, but I'm going to find out. So I'm going to Control S to save, launch the planet, and what do you know? Stunk. I did something wrong.
Did it say as a PNG or a JPEG?
Did I save it as a PNG? All right. I swear I used the same images just earlier today and they were image1.jpg. Oh, I'm in the documents directory. Alrighty, grab Mr. Picture, drag him over to documents. Y'all, I'm sure, put the code in the right place, but I didn't. Okay. I knew that just by looking up here. Run it again. Now I'll get my droid. Now he's way too big. I'm going to lower his size. He doesn't need to be 600 pixels wide.
Wait, do you call the picture code?
No, he called it image. He changed the name to image.
When I did save as, it was download.jpg or something like that. I changed its name to image1.jpg. The tag is still droid.
But you can always just copy and paste the name of the file where img1 is.
Right. If I had some long, complicated path in my documents folder, like if this was really called, Battle Space Droid, I could just get that file name, paste it, and put it wherever it needed to be, right? Like right there and right there. I'll be right back there, Vincent. I'm going to undo those changes, though. Before I go, I'm going to change this to like 200, and I don't know why it says PS. I thought that was supposed to be PX. I don't know if that's a typo or not. It seemed to work, but I'm going to change it to PX. I'm going to run it, and that looks a little bit better. And when I click him, he changes to the alternate image. The entire point of JavaScript is to prevent us from having to load the page from the internet. One load is enough to bring all this in, and then these changes are modifying its inner model rather than going back out to the server. Why? Because when you go out to the server, right, the wheel starts spinning, it has to access the internet. That can take, a couple of seconds. If your internet drops temporarily, it can hang. JavaScript lets you do everything inside it without having to hit the server again. Or you can hit the server in the background while it's displaying.
I have a close bracket for the IM. Oh, wait, no.
Oh, yeah.
Show me It was changing its color until we added some of this new stuff, right, though? At one time, change demo was working.
You're working with it for a year or so.
Like, if I cut this out,
I hear Python, even though it's persnickety about something, VDC is punished to learn.
and
More useful.
this out.
Yeah. I'm going to learn C just because I'm stubborn. And it's a machine language. That's the closest to the machine language that we have.
Yeah.
And I want to get into robotics, so I think that's probably the best one to learn.
Right now, I'm trying to get some users to use C# and C++. So, hopefully,
Do you live in the Midwest City or in the area? Do you have access to this library though, right? The library system? Yeah, did you know they have lynda.com classes for free? Lynda.com classes? Lynda.com teaches all kinds of techie stuff. It's usually like $20-30 a month, but they have it for free on their resource page. And I know they have C# and C+ on it.
Okay.
So just, when you go to the library's main page, I think it's under downloads, then they have like this whole resource page where you can look, lynda.com should be there.
Okay.
LYNDA.com.
Okay,
Check that out.
so problem seems to be.
I'm trying to learn as many programming as I can, just because it looks good.
Yeah. And you're gonna look at these.
go online, you see like professional programmers and everybody. It's just you just keep seeing language after language.
It's like how Ken Dewey signs his emails with all
Yeah,
of his,
all those,
like those
like,
lines of his certification.
Well, see now the certifications are understandable because.
It's kind of 50.
Well, yeah, I know.
That's true.
But the thing is, you pay for those tests, you actually take an exam. But like, if you say you know the programming languages, they have no basis for it.
Yeah, that's
Like, they can ask you questions about it, but you just list. I had a friend who had listed all these languages, and I doubt she knew any. And she just listed them all.
I have seen HTML, so therefore it's going
Yeah,
on my
exactly.
resume.
And that's the thing. That's exactly where it goes.
About that.
Like I've heard of Ruby, oh, there's Ruby on there, you know?
I'm on spot. When we put this,
But see, like certifications, they make sense. You have the proof for it.
oh,
Yeah.
I changed it.
I would still, like, instead of having all 50 like Dewey does, I would have like the main ones, the big ones, like the CISSP or something like that, you know?
Oh, see, that's a subtle brag. Like,
Yeah.
you gotta admit, when you see all those certifications, you realize how much effort you put
Yeah.
into it.
You know why he has all those certifications? It's actually the opposite of effort. He doesn't want to go through the process of renewal because it's such a pain in
So
the
he
ass.
just wants to
He
get
just gets the higher up one, and the higher up ones tend to renew the lower ones. So I'm like, okay, that's.
But I mean,
So that does make sense.
yeah, but that's a logical process. Like, you don't wanna keep going on stamps.
Yeah. And also, like, I mean, even if you get your Security Plus, you have to get like 120 hours of training per year, and you know you've got to take the certification all over again. So you might as well go up and get more money. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I've
Well,
seen those
we're gonna find.
requirements for the CISSP, and just in the book, oh gosh, 250 questions in
They
6
have
hours.
a a core a certification that you can have in the meantime while you're studying for the CISSP. I mean, how ridiculous is that? That you don't qualify for the because you can't actually even study for the CISSP yet. But we'll let you take this 6-month one here to get you into the training program. It's like,
Studying for my Security Plus one right now, and it's
oh, I know.
wonderful. Just wonderful.
I know Dewey sent out that email saying that we have the vouchers aren't going to be available until July, and I'm like, good, I have a month to study.
What class do you guys take here to prepare for the security?
Well, they have a Network Security Plus class, the Network Security class. There's the Networks Plus class, which is for the networks
All right, it's working
secure,
now.
the
All
networks
I did is copy and
certification,
paste.
and then there's
I don't
network
know why.
security for the
We
network
got
security.
some little error in it.
And, but if you get the security certification before you take the class, if I give you any of the certifications to take the class, they'll give you full credit for the class, and you don't have to make up 30 hours. So, I'm
Put it on here,
hoping
I'll
to
click the-
shave
I'm
off
also
some of my
gonna-
time here by getting
Yeah,
certs.
on it, please, image two.
I'm
What
not
in the
staying at the
what in the
school
world is
anymore. I
that?
was
That's
just
not what the
wondering how
syntax
back
showed.
direction is.
Go back to your PowerPoint.
And if you wanted to like transfer
Actually,
some of
paste
these,
the
like,
tag.
like, a lot of people want to go to the
I'm still
OS.
downloading all the CISSP videos from my TV Pro studying all summer.
Oh my
Me
god,
too.
yes.
Downloading.
Okay.
Well, I asked Julie if I could
Now
just
show me
keep
what
my
it does.
subscription, and he said, sure.
Oh yeah, you can keep it over the summer. I
Yeah.
asked him like a week ago.
Yeah, and he said the dumb
back.
email, I'm like,
That's exactly what they said. Can I have the
Page
login?
six
He said
change, on click.
I know, I sent them this long email
Change
explaining, you
demo.
know, I'm gonna be back on the
Capital
phone,
D.
but I have to take summer
Change
off because of
demo.
funding, blah, blah, blah. He goes, done, I'm like,
If it works, then we're gonna just have to bail.
thank you for understanding my plight.
Copy and paste it again, we might be able to get it work, but we're not gonna mess with it. Not working. All
At
right.
least I have it, so I'm like.
Okay, guys, we've demonstrated JavaScript. We haven't really demonstrated much that's cool, not much that's awesome, but we've demonstrated that it's interactive. So it's interactive without hitting the server for new stuff. We're not triggering a reload at any time with all this. That's what JavaScript was invented to do. Before this, web pages were static. All they looked like was I mean, this is like 1990 or whatever. But that's all they were. And then then they added pictures, and stuff like that. But each time you wanted to change the document, you had to click a button that would cause it to refresh and go to the server. Okay, so unless the next slide looks really interesting, we're going to go on and do the next thing, which is work on the web app. Okay, this one will be fun, but we're not going to mess with it much. just grab this last chunk of little text here. Paste it in. Go and grab the last script. Paste it in to the script section. And when we run it, it clicks OK and it pops up a dialog. Confirmation dialog. OK or cancel. I'm going to click OK. And it says yay. I'm going to click it again. I'm going to click cancel. And it says uh-oh. Okay, so what's going on there? Same thing, it's just a button, right? The on-click calls the say OK function. If we come up here and we look at the say OK function, what does it do? It pops open a function which is provided to us by JavaScript. We didn't write it, called confirm. Launches the confirmation dialog. Its result is stored in a variable called x. That's just a Boolean variable. If x is equal to true, that's because they clicked OK. This language wants a capital T, not a lowercase t. Vice versa. Python wants capital T's, JavaScript wants. Else, text equals uh-oh. If you need more than one line inside your else, your if or your else clause, unlike Python, you have to use curly braces. Like that. That's if I wanted to put more than one line of text here, more than one line of code, for whatever purposes. I don't know if alert is a valid word. This may not work at all. Yeah. So you see what it's doing. It did this display here, hello. In order to have more than one line indented under the if statement, we had to enclose it in curly braces rather than just going by tabs. And this is true of Java and C++ and 8 billion other languages. Python is positionally dependent. You have to get the tabbing right in this language. Instead, you use curly braces. And you could do goofy stuff like that, and it would work just as well. Right? There. Ugly works just as well. All right, we're going to go to the next one. Yes, sir?
Was there supposed to be a dialogue box?
Yeah, if you scroll down to the very bottom, you click OK, it ought to pop up the box.
Did you copy and paste it next week?
There's one other page. Resume,
Need, yeah. That one goes in the body tab. Bottom right. All the way down. Yeah, okay. All right.
In our assignments page, probably somewhere down at the very bottom, there's something that says Apple Web App, or Beatles Web App, something to that effect. So refresh the assignments page, go down to the very, very, very bottom. There's a folder. There's a folder. Okay, it's at the very top, excuse me. I'm going to stick it in the in-class lecture tutorials folder where it ought to should be. Alrighty, so it's got a weird name, Z2, whatever. Z. Grab the zip file. You don't have to follow along with this because we're going to be going quickly. If you can follow along, that's cool. So grab the zip file and download it. Extract it. Take note of where you extract it so that you can play with it. So I'm going to grab the zip, download it. I'm going to save it in my documents directory, just make it easy to find. Web app assignment.doc, I'm going to get that too because those are my instructions. I'm going to open the web app folder, and I particularly hate this 7-zip, but it's okay. I'm going to click the minus extract to get it out. And just again, take note of where it's saving it. I could save it somewhere else if I wanted to. Click OK. Close 7-zip. And I'm going to open up my Word doc, my instructions. All right. So I need to find the simple underscore HTTPD file. So launch idle, do file open, go to wherever you extracted it. I extracted mine to documents. Find the web app folder and find this. HTTP, the D stands for daemon, or daemon if you like pronouncing the A in it. And here it is. We don't really have to know much about what this is doing, but we can see that it's got a line here that creates an HTTP server process that sits there and waits for connections. The port that we're going to be watching, listening to, for some reason is 8080. I don't know why I didn't just make it the standard HTML port. So when we open a web page, we're going to have to specify what port we're reading from. So what you do is you run this, you minimize it, and you forget it. And if it ever crashes, if everything stops working, you're going to have to open it up and run it again. This has to be running the entire time. So I'm going to click Run Module, and there it says, starting the daemon on port 8080. Okay, go to Chrome, go to IE, go to something. Now our loopback address, the IP address of our own machine as far as we are concerned, is 127.0.0.1, but an alias for that is localhost. So I'm going to type localhost :8080, just because that's the port that we told our HTTP process to be listening to. Alrighty. So our web server just pulled up that web page. Python fielded the request. Python loaded up that text file and that HTML file and just passed it to us. All right, the Beatles. Welcome to the most awesome Beatles website ever. For now, all you'll find is a voting poll. I'm going to click the voting poll. Where does it take me? It takes me to a page, Beatles Forever. Who is the best Beatle of all time? Okay, and it's got this cute little voting thing. And if I click select or whatever, it takes me to something else. All right, so I'm going to go back and take a look. And I'm going to find my documents. And inside the web app folder, I'm going to see, oh, okay, I have a index.html file. If I double click that, it looks like my Beatles. And then if I click the voting poll, oh, well, it's not working anymore. There's no web page for the voting poll results. I can look all over for it. I have a vote selected.py file, but there's no HTML file for either the take a vote screen or for the results screen. That's because these are being served up by Python. If I do edit with idle, this, well, okay, excuse me, 64-bit, 32, whatever. This is the web page that generates that voting screen. Well, that's the results, but let's get the other one. Voting.py. If I right-click on it, do edit with idle, there we go. There's our list of Beatles. One of them's looking out of place. If you don't know your Beatles history, you probably know the name Ringo. Why are we seeing Pete here? Well, because he was their drummer in 1962 before they fired him. All right, so here we go. What it does is it loads a library, a module called Yate, which stands for Yet Another Template. When they click on this index page, let's go and look at the HTML for the index file. Why can't I find TextPad? There we go. Oh, thanks. Now you're itty-bitty again. All right. This is the index file. It sets everything up, and there's a link. This ahref attribute, tag, this would normally be an HTML extension here. Like if we wanted to go to Google, you don't have to do this because I'm going to undo it. If we wanted to go to Google, when we click that link, we would replace this with http://google.com. Right, so ahref is an anchor tag with a hypertext reference. When it clicks, this is the link that it goes to, and this is the text that gets displayed. So I click on that tag, voting poll. Well, okay, now it goes to the Google webpage. Not useful. That's what it does. All right, instead, it's calling a script right there. And the HTTP daemon we have running, the server software we have running, is smart enough to know that if it hits a reference to a Python script, it's going to run that script. And anything that gets printed in that script turns into a web page. That's what's delivered down the pipe to our browser. This works totally without Python on the client. If this was running on a server, we could uninstall Python. We could access it from a phone. You know, we could access it from our smartwatch, whatever, and it would still work because all the Python, all the code that's actually running is working on the server, not the client. That's why it's called server-side programming. So when we click that link, it's going to open up the Python file that's in the CGI bin directory. Let's go and find that. I had it open a minute ago. Voting.py, there it is. Import my template library. Start a response. All that does is it creates the HTML tag and the body tag. And then print the include header. We could look at the HTML that it creates to see what that is. And then start a form. You have to put a form if you're going to have some radio buttons or some input fields. And then we create a paragraph inside that form. Who is the best Beatle of all time? Then we have a for loop for each name in the band. We create a button. Notice these print statements. These print statements are just constructing some text which is then sent to the client. The client that requested it. Your browser made a request and it's getting some text back. And then we end our form with a select button. And then we have a footer. Let's run it again and take a look at the code that gets generated. I'm going to go back to, why did my brain? Localhost, :8080. I'm going to click on the voting poll link. This is the, did you see Python load up in the background? We saw a black screen there very briefly. It generates this web page just by print statements. And if I do view page source, we can see the corresponding between the voting Python script and the HTML that was generated. Start response, began that, just added HTML. Include header, created some other stuff. Start form, created this stuff right down here to group our buttons together. Each button we added with the yate.radio button function, we printed those out, looks like that. We could modify this to be somewhat silly, but before we do our start form, before we do that, let's print something. Print, parentheses, quote, open, or angle, P, close, P, I am a mad hacker. You are pwned. All right. Close quote. Nope, don't close your quote. Angle, /P, close angle, end quote, in parentheses. Okay, that was too much text. I can't keep it all on the screen, so I'm going to shorten it. But we can see what we're doing, right? We just generated some HTML with a print statement right there. Now when we run it, we don't run this. If we did, it just, yeah, not working. How do we run it? We go to our client, go to localhost, :8080. Hope you saved your document first. Voting poll. Alrighty. Uh-oh, I've been hacked. Alright, that's just to demonstrate. Anything we print on the screen, any kind of valid HTML will be sent down from the request as ASCII text, which the client then turns into part of the web page. If we do view page source, we'll see what we added there. Well, let's make a change. We don't like Pete being there. We got to put Ringo there. So we're going to edit our voting.py file. I'm going to change Pete to Ringo. I'm going to Control S to save it. I'm going to go back to my web browser. I'm going to go back to localhost. I have apparently 8 million little tabs open now. I'm going to click on the voting poll. Now it says Ringo. Excellent. And if I choose Ringo and click select, it calls that other Python file, vote selected, which the Python server, the HTML server, executes, collects everything that was printed, and sends back to the client via the HTTP port, or the specified port, 8080. I'd kind of like to see if y'all got this going. May not be able to get everybody fixed, but I'd kind of like to see if you're able to get it running, see the Beatles webpage, click it, have it say Beatles Forever, and maybe even have changed it, change that text. Okay, so when we select somebody and click the select button, it loads up the other PY file to generate some more text to send as an HTML web page. Now, this is boring because it prints the same thing no matter who is chosen. How much time we got? A little bit more time. Cool. So open up the other Python file, voter selection. I'm just going to go to CGI bin, right-click on vote selected, and edit with idle. Why do we have two? Whatever. Okay. It's another template. It's done slightly differently because we're getting the result of the function and then we're printing it out. Same thing. Okay, down here, it uses a CGI command to pull out of the form that was submitted which beetle was selected. If we went back, we would see that every beetle had a name associated with it. Right-click, view page source, right, which beetle, there's a value called John. That's what we're retrieving with the CGI command after they click submit. So it's actually being brought with us from the prior web page to this one. And then we print out the name of the beetle and we print right on, man, love is all you need. We can do something a little bit more useful than that. We stored the result in the name field. So down here where it says right on, man, love is all you need, let's put an if statement. If name equals, quote, Ringo, end quote, colon, we're going to print something else out. A equals Yate dot para, parentheses, quote. What are we going to say? We're going to make him say, I live on a yellow submarine, exclamation mark, end quote, in parentheses. And then I need to make this say else colon and tab this one over. This is going to be the default one, right? I could put a different one for every beetle. I could put one in for John, you know, with an elif, Paul, and whatever. I was just about to run this, and again, that wouldn't do a darn thing, right? It's only when this is invoked from the web server that actually does anything. So I'm going to come back up here, localhost 8080. We customize the behavior only for Ringo. So if I choose Ringo, I'm going to see a new message. It says I live on a yellow submarine. But if I choose any of the other people, it prints the default message. And so I could customize each one. Now I have a modern sense of humor, so I'd be tempted to put something sad for John, but I'm not going to do that. So that's it, actually. That's it. Notice that down here at the footer, which creates some HTTP web links, one of them is just calling index.html, which is that front page for the Beatles. And then the other one is actually a link to the Python script, which, as mentioned, when the server opens the Python script, it runs it. That's the idea behind server-side programming. Client machine, your phone, whatever accessed it, wouldn't need Python installed on it. Now, most server-side programming, or at least a lot of it, would not be done with Python because it's not the fastest thing in the planet. Might be done in Java. Java is a very common server-side programming language. C# may be even more popular. There's CGI, which Python uses, and CGI is not supposed to scale to the state that Facebook has grown to, but you can believe that they've customized it out, completely in order to run as fast as possible to service the trillions of requests that it get. So when we load up eBay or anything, what's happening is the web server is actually running some server software. Sign on with Google. What? Anyways, that's hitting databases to construct all of this, and then it's generating that text stream to send to us. And then if we move over and we choose stuff, we add something to a cart, it didn't even have to re-hit the web page, right? Maybe it went up there, maybe I wasn't watching too carefully, but you ought to be able to do a lot of stuff without it hitting the server, right? If I click over my eBay, it's popping up this drop-down menu without hitting the server in order to redraw it. If it does need to hit the database in order to update something, then it should be able to do so behind the scenes, asynchronously. All right, we are done. I know that we don't know everything about HTML. I know that we don't know everything about JavaScript, but we know more than we did. Now, if you've done JavaScript programming or web server management, then you probably know more than I do, and that's pretty cool. So, upload whatever you want into the Z directory. Give me the HTML file you created earlier. If you changed any of these files and you feel like zipping the entire web app directory and giving it to me as well, that's also totally cool.